Indeed, it is great to see you back. We are on the third episode, Facing Your Real Spouse. And just before the break, we said we have to accept that our spouses are changing and we have to adjust to that, or they will keep changing. If you're young in marriage, if you just got married, or you just want to join marriage, your spouse will not be the same person you thought about all through. They're going to look so different with time. It's normal, it's usual. Some beautiful things may fade. Some nice looking things may lack. Some things you are used to may start looking like they are no longer there. Some ugly things may start cropping up. It's the reality. It is that person changing as it's expected with growth. But we have just said, as we adjust to the reality, there is that telling each other the truth. Telling each other, this is wrong, this is right, don't do that because I don't like it, God will hate it also. It's not the proper way of doing it. And you can have all these discussions. Sometimes not in a very polite way, but we encourage if they can be in a polite way. One of the things that would be a big challenge for me is to correct my wife in a very polite way. I have to work on it. One thing I have to work on is getting corrected by my wife and accepting how she corrects me, even if she doesn't correct me in a very polite way. These are things that we have to keep doing, but in reality, we are telling each other the truth. And we said this before the break. We want to come back and say, how do we go about adjusting to these realities? How do we go about adjusting to these realities? And I want us to look at one major thing. Looking inwards to self so that you can know what to do with your spouse. You want to adjust to the reality of your spouse, but the problem is not actually what your spouse is doing and what you need to adjust according to what they are doing. It's actually going to be going back to yourself so that you can know how to adjust to that spouse. So that you can know how to adjust to what they are doing. Keller, or Timothy Keller, Pastor Timothy Keller and Kierkegaard talk about marriage as the institution, or as the only institution that brings people so close in contact with each other. There is no any other institution that brings people that close. So close, such that God speaks about it as oneness in Genesis. And you know, when this happens, it happens because when you look at a child and their parents, they can be close, but the problem is there are power differentials. The power differentials are too big. These are parent, these are child. Already you can see who is powerful. One of them is so powerful than the other. That contact, however close it is, it's not one of power balance. It's kind of, the terrain is, tilted. The playing field is not leveled. Look at the contact that you would even say colleagues. Yes, it's there, but you know what? There are some people who are in charge of others in terms of leadership. There are those who are perhaps doing other things and others who are doing different things. These are situations where people will assume they are in contact but not as close as it would be in marriage. And therefore, when people are in contact in a marriage institution, it is really, really close. And as we said in the beginning, it makes the reality about these people become so clear. It becomes so clear, it becomes so open, such that it's very hard for someone to hide. They have to get off that mask at the midnight. Those parties where people go and wear masks and they are dancing the whole night. Until midnight, that's when they get off the mask, and that's when you realize you're actually dancing with somebody who you didn't know. Masks have to come off in marriage. People get so close. Time for masks getting off comes. And you know what? It is a moment of truth because people start talking the reality to each other. I don't like the way you snore. I don't like the way... Oh my goodness. There are so funny things that happen between spouses. If you know them, you'd laugh all day long. But they are beautiful things. They're beautiful things. There are people who snore a lot, perhaps. I don't know whether it's me or my wife. I am not so sure. But it happens. And some other funny things that happen around, yeah? And people... Some other things are offending. Some other things are not so becoming. They are unbecoming. And these realities start creeping in. They start cropping up. Things start happening. And people have to start imagining of this closeness. Definitely you cannot fail to be so open to your spouse. You have to be clear. Clear as glass. You have to be clear. You have to be visible. You have to be transparent. And you know what? In this context, let's look at some of the things that we say marriage brings to the light. When you are single, those flaws may not be seen. For example, you're a very demanding man, and when things are not done the way you like, you sulk. Very demanding. I don't want anybody in this house talking past 10 p.m. I want everybody quiet. I don't want loud music in this house. I don't want people laughing anyhow in this place. I don't like this, I don't like that. And when people don't do it, whenever it's sulk. Yeah, it happens. Impatient, so impatient. Things don't go your way, you get so sulky. That reality comes. Oh, I love you. Oh, my beautiful wife. At that moment of sulking is not there. It's not there. It's zero. It's missing. What about being so abrasive? Some women are also very abrasive, and men also. You are feared. Some men are feared by their wives and children. They think they are loved, but perhaps it's being feared. People fear you because of the way you talk, because of the way you handle your things. If you are single, some of these things cannot be seen very easily, right? You might be a very indisciplined guy, unreliable, very disorganized. Nothing really works when it is given to you. Nothing works. A lot of that. When you are single and you got to get food on the table, it's on your own plate, so you can as well skip the food. You can as well go for some quick food out there, a quick snack, and we can't know that you are very disorganized. You can't get things done in time. Children can't eat in time. We can't know this. You're single. We can't know how bad you are with planning time until you are planning time with your wife. And that can come in reality, and that's when we start knowing you're so bad at it. We can't know that you're a very irritable person and you hold grudges a lot until somebody you love a lot, like your spouse, offends you. Sometimes I get offended by my wife and I feel like I don't want to sleep in the house. But you know what? She's my wife. How long can I hold the grudge? Perhaps until the next time she comes and tells me, hey baby, do you want a cup of coffee? I mean, grudge has to go. Grudge has to go first before you answer yes. Because what kind of a man are you? Because you have so much grudge with your wife, she offers you a cup of coffee and says no. Until you are in an institution of marriage where it's really, really, really clear, that you are offended, that's when we can know who you are. If you're single, perhaps not possible. You can ignore people. After all, you'll not be with them the whole day. They'll go home, you'll go home. Perhaps you overly like independent decision making, and you never ask for help from others. If you're alone, you got to do this alone all the time. It's normal. Nobody will know that you have a problem with it. But if you're married, you can't just decide that this time I'm going to holiday in Malindi, or you're going for your holiday in Maldives, or you're going to buy your clothes in Moy Avenue and not in Gikomba. You can't just decide that. You have to decide with your spouse, because you're not just buying your own, you're buying for the whole family. So there has to be some decision making here. You can't do it alone. You have to agree. So if you're very poor at it, then you find yourself having made the decision and you are exposed in that area. Truth about you comes out, and you have to keep correcting that. You have to change it. Sometimes we don't want to change and we get into a little quarrel. If we are not very good, the quarrel can escalate. We are here to learn about the hurdles of a young marriage. Even that can cause a problem. If you can't make a decision with someone in an amicable way, you can only agree until you have a post-election violence in your house, and that's when you have a little of handshakes and nusumkate, and that's when you settle things. Then things have to change. You have to change in that area, right? You can't live like that all through. Last one. You are thrifty and miserly. There are people who, when they get into the supermarket, just immediately after they get paid, they buy a lot. They buy a lot. Impulse buying. Perhaps they don't even remember that they had to pay rent. On the contrary, they never give to their friends, they never help their family members, their relatives are suffering, they are dying of hunger, they're struggling with school fees, they don't give to church, they don't give to the poor, they don't. No, you see, they're buying a lot of beautiful clothes, shoes, nice snacks, all those things, but they are not generous. This gets you coming out clear when you get married. It comes out so clear, and people will see. To look inward before you start thinking about how you can cope with your spouse. And therefore, while these flaws may be very minor in a single man, a single young woman, they become a major issue in a marriage context. If you don't handle them properly, they can cost the marriage a serious fortune. The marriage can break, people can separate, children will be left in trouble, they never have their father close, they cannot have the love of the mother and the father at the same time, they have to go to school without perhaps breakfast. A lot of bad things happen to the children in the course of that. And if you're not even having children, the marriage breaks, it becomes the worst example in the church, marriages breaking. That's not where we want to get to. So some of the faults that we have, or the flaws we have as single men, when we get them exposed in marriage, we'd rather fix them. We don't let them escalate, because they could be very costly. And this is why we go back to our recurring verse. Rather than remaining immature, as Paul says in verse 14, chapter 4 verse 15, Ephesians chapter 4 verse 15 says, we speak truth in love and we grow up in Christ. Marriage has the power to help us look inwards and be ready to speak to each other in love, knowing that these things that my wife is doing, I may be similarly weak. These things my husband is doing, can I speak to him in love, because I may also be there. I have my fair share of my weaknesses. Look inwards before you start adjusting and saying, how do I adjust to this guy snoring and I don't snore? Look inward first. Look at the things that you may not be doing right, and you will be able to adjust to your marriage and your spouse changing. I'm going to look at the last part, which is growing, in the next episode. You need to stay tuned, because we just looked at adjusting to our marriages, and we need to look at inwards, look at ourselves so that we can adjust. The Lord God bless you. Shalom. See you in the next episode.